I'm Tiffany Meier. Fresh attacks on Iran, retribution for fallen American soldiers. That's coming up right now. The president orders fresh airstrikes on Iran to honor soldiers killed in the Jordan base attack. Tonight, we learn the names of two of them.
My vote is in play. I'm not living in communist America.
Bill Maher throws down the gauntlet. And fans go wild as Spain wins the World Cup. Our panel weighs in. Welcome to Tiffany Meier Tonight. We now know the names of two American soldiers killed in Iran's missile and drone attack on a base in Jordan. The Department of War saying 25-year-old First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan of Eva Beach, Hawaii, and 19-year-old Private Isabella Gonzalez of Carrollton, Texas, killed in action during an enemy attack on an airbase in Jordan on Friday. An attack the U.S. military says involved Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. Both were part of Army air and missile defense units deployed to support a U.S. mission against the Islamic State group under Operation Inherent Resolve. The military saying that attack still under investigation, but that Gonzalez died Friday and Feehan died Saturday. A third service member from that Jordan strike remains missing, and another American soldier was killed in northern Iraq during a controlled detonation of unexploded ordnance from a downed Iranian drone, part of 17 U.S. service members killed since the war began on February 28th. That's according to the U.S. military. The deaths of Feehan, Gonzalez, and the still unidentified service member coming as the U.S. military continues its uptick in attacks, carrying out its 10th straight night of airstrikes on Iran, targeting military command centers, air defense sites, missile and drone launchers, and communications networks, while Tehran launching attacks on U.S.-aligned countries, including Kuwait and Bahrain. Today, on his Truth Social account, President Trump writing, quote, "Every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over," adding that directive relayed to his top military leaders. Meantime, Tehran's ally, Yemen's Houthi rebels, announcing a maritime embargo against Saudi Arabia and are disrupting shipping routes following an attack last week on a Yemeni airport. The White House confirming tonight that President Trump will attend the dignified transfer of Feehan and Gonzalez at Dover Air Force Base tomorrow evening. And joining us now is NTD Senior Military and National Security Analyst Mike Sorelli. He's also a retired U.S. Navy SEAL. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to have you. Now, First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan and Private Isabella Gonzalez were on a U.S. military base in Jordan when they were killed by an enemy attack. Both sides were already escalating strikes before the weekend. What do you think we'll see now?
Well, my thoughts and prayers go out to the Feehan and the Gonzalez family, and we'll eventually find out the name of the third casualty. American blood changes the overall equation. It changes any circumstance, and now President Trump has a responsibility in further strategic justification to unload consequences on Iran that they just can't bear. So I foresee we're into the 10th consecutive night of strikes. I see the chances for diplomacy waning, and I see the need to continue this repetitive, sustained campaign against Iran, further calling for our allies to enter the fray until this regime is either dismantled, decimated, or so weak that we're secure for generations.
And with the U.S. targeting infrastructure and Iran hitting U.S. military bases, do you think we'll see further escalation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The center of gravity will not change, and that is the Strait of Hormuz. And President Trump is essentially attacking Iran's coastline in order to create an island, make it an island from the mainland of Iran. And until the Strait of Hormuz is totally secure, foresee that those strikes in that campaign continuing, because ultimately that has global impacts, and that is what will pull in the allies. If it continues to affect the energy maritime lanes, it continues to increase the price of oil. That's when our allies feel the pressure, and they will enter this fray.
Now, despite this, the United States has said it is open to diplomacy, provided it's in good faith. Now, communications are still ongoing with mediators fielding talks, even as the U.S. hits back for the 10th day in a row. This is how Secretary of State Marco Rubio put it before departing for his Asia trip.
Do you see a diplomatic off-ramp still? Do you believe that
I think we're always open to diplomacy. It has to be real. It has to be a deal that they're willing to live by. Look, Iran a week ago was supposed to put out a statement saying that the Straits of Hormuz would be open, that they would no longer attack shipping. And instead of doing that, they attacked 3 ships. I think that was last Friday or Saturday. So, I mean, their behavior has to change in order for ours to change.
Is the MOU dead, or are we just back in full-scale war?
Well, they're not complying with it. I mean, the Straits are supposed to be open, free of tolls, free of attack, free of all the things they're doing against these ships. So you can't have an MOU that's alive if they're violating the terms of it. What I will say is that the United States always remains open to a diplomatic solution. We've tried multiple times with Iran, and we'll continue to try. If that door opens, we'll be happy to see it open. But they continue to send signals that they want to talk, that they want to negotiate, but their behavior is what we're responding to. And their behavior is they're launching missiles and drones against ships, including tonight.
And to your earlier point, Mike, given how quickly the last deal fell through, what do you think diplomacy looks like going forward?
Well, I think the only diplomacy that needs to take place is with our allies, especially those in the region, is making sure that they're aligned against Iran. And our allies are involved, the regional partners. It's just not being well advertised. You know, the only diplomacy we should accept from Iran, and President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio understand this. They see the world for what it is, not rose-colored glasses. The only diplomacy is unconditional surrender. They've given it a chance, and no cynic or pessimist can say that President Trump and Marco Rubio didn't give peace or diplomacy a chance. They did, but with this regime in the past 47 years, they do not comply with agreements. They lie to your face. There's nothing to negotiate other than their surrender and their decimation.
And to your point on the allies, U.S. officials have repeatedly made the point that our allies rely on the Strait for energy a lot more than we do. This is Secretary Rubio again over the weekend.
Virtually none of those vessels are flagged U.S. Almost none of those vessels are delivering cargo or fuel to the United States. So we are basically providing the service of protecting these ships on behalf of the world, and we're the only ones doing anything about it. But I do think the world is coming to a point now where it's clear that Iran, at least some people in Iran, want to control the Straits and hold that as leverage against the world. And the world has to decide whether or not it's going to allow an international waterway to be under the control of a country like this, which is completely illegal, unlawful, and unacceptable. The United States will do and continue to do what it needs to protect global shipping, but other countries need to begin to step up and provide, whether it's hardware or finances, to help carry that burden. It is not the United States' job to protect shipping for the entire planet forever.
And Mike, do you think we'll see other countries get involved? What would that take?
I think eventually, sometimes the pain needs to be felt a little more or a little sharper. But you have a president and a secretary of state that are tired of Americans paying first, fighting first, and being naked later. And this is the problem that they've had with NATO. So those discussions are going on. And maybe they need to see more progress or the potential for victory in Iran. Ultimately, it's tough to remove a regime without ground forces. That's why we were successful in Iraq between the aerial and the ground campaign. But eventually, I do have faith that our NATO allies will come to our aid merely because of the impact it's having on their markets.
And speaking of the region, the Houthis said today they will impose a blockade on Saudi Arabia, potentially expanding the field of this conflict and affecting 7% of the global oil supply. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, one, do the Houthis have the capability and the capacity to actually enforce a blockade? And that's the question. And remember, there are a lot of saber rattling, a lot of threats with little follow through. They've sat predominantly pretty idle in this war, a few rockets towards Israel and other places. They have attacked the Red Sea before, but not to the point of major disruption. It is a major energy maritime lane, one that we need to protect. But if they provoke Saudi Arabia, expect a massive response from the Saudi Arabia military, which is both capable and has a large capacity.
And Mike, shifting gears a little bit here, an analysis that just came out found 1 in 8 apps marketed to U.S. service members have code from Chinese and Russian firms. How big of a national security risk would you say this is?
So you're talking about the reports that Iran could have possibly used our service members' cell phones in country to target them. And it's not hard. Those apps, whether it's Amazon, it's Instagram, TikTok, and if you have enough soldiers co-located in one location between the hours of, let's say, 6:30 and a.m. and 6:30 p.m., they can start to deduce where the major targets are on the bases like Jordan. Now, it would take the capability of the Chinese cooperating with Iran to give those geolocation, those locations to target. And if that's the case, then expect back channel diplomacy going on between the U.S. and China, with the U.S. giving stern warning to back off and not cooperate or support or provide material, intelligence to Iran.
Well, Mike Sorelli, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Coming up, already sworn in to finish her brother's term, Senator Darlene Graham on whether she'll run for a full term. And one thing with which the ancients did not have to contend, a 3-hour telling of the Odyssey. Coming up, how did that fare with modern audiences? The box office breakdown later in the show with our panel. And here they come. Welcome back to Maine now, and Democrats racing from a sexual assault allegation and a sudden exit to a likely new nominee, a logger poised to take on Republican Senator Susan Collins. Less than 2 weeks ago, Democratic nominee Graham Plattner quitting the race after a sexual assault allegation he denies, forcing the party to scramble for a replacement. Under a never-before-used system, 601 delegates will meet in Bangor on Saturday to pick a new Senate nominee. Troy Jackson, a former state Senate president and fifth-generation logger from the North Maine woods, surging ahead. His campaign saying 481 delegates already committed to backing him, and top rivals like Secretary of State Shanna Bellows and former Maine CDC Director Nirav Shah have dropped out. In a statement, Jackson thanking Democrats for their faith in him, saying, quote, hundreds of volunteers put in the hours, knocked on doors, made phone calls, and believe we could build something bigger than ourselves. One Maine political scientist says Jackson's positions are, quote, pretty far to the left of the median voter, adding Jackson backing Medicare for All, a government-run health plan with no premiums or deductibles and only minimal copays, giving Republicans plenty to target. The GOP already branding Jackson a socialist and attacking the process that put him in front. RNC spokesperson Kristen Chauncey calling Maine's convention, quote, just as bad as Kamala's rigged coronation. Adding, quote, Maine voters have had their voices stolen by party insiders. Jackson first ran for office as a Republican, won a House seat as an independent, then switched to the Democratic Party and became Maine Senate president. And this year finished third in the Democratic governor's primary with backing from Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, with the convention just days away and the general election little more than 100 days out, Maine is about to test whether a progressive logger can unseat longtime Republican Senator Susan Collins. Joining me now, our most excellent panel, Deborah Leah, political commentator, Danny Salas, Democratic strategist, and Chris Bob, NTD's political correspondent. So after my soliloquy, let's dive right in here. Danny, how are you reading this race?
What's not to like about Troy Jackson? Republican, turning to independent, turning to a Democrat, was very pro-life, became very pro-choice. I mean, this guy is what you call a weather vane. He will literally just follow where the wind is blowing. He is the perfect candidate to be endorsed by the Maine Democratic Socialists of America. So he is a progressive choice. He is a DSA choice. He is someone that clearly doesn't have any set ideals. So I am sorry, as a true and real Democrat, I will tell you, this is exactly why the Democrats are struggling nationally. You're seeing it take place in Maine right now when you're electing these folks and selecting them as the standard bearer for the Democratic Party in some of these most important races that can determine who is going to be the majority party leading the United States Senate. It's a failure of our party at this very moment. So no, I'm not a fan. Yep.
All right, Chris, I know you have thoughts.
Well, he said, what's not to like? And all I can say is that he's no Ashley Webb. You know, I was blown away by some of the candidates that were on that debate stage, and I have to say this is a little underwhelming. You see, you know, he's a typical guy, walks around in a t-shirt. You saw the solidarity shirt. A friend, I guess, is to some degree of Graham Plattner's.
Yeah.
You know, they campaigned together for a little bit, but then we're going to forget what happened there. I mean, I think that's kind of the issue. I mean, I don't think the enthusiasm is there anymore. There was definitely a high degree of enthusiasm for like the day after Plattner got the nod, and then everyone started learning all this information, and then it got worse and worse and worse and worse, and now we have this guy. And you know, he has a record. He's a former state senator. He did some things. He was arrested, not arrested, but kind of taken away by the police in the 90s for trying to stop the Canadian loggers, you know, from coming from Quebec to Maine and, you know, stealing all the, you know, log jobs. You described him as a progressive logger, so I get to talk about this. And now he wants to abolish ICE. Yeah. Just like you said. I can say he's politically rootless. I don't think I could use the same words you did, but yeah, interesting choice. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
Okay, Deborah.
Well, I think it is important to acknowledge that the Democratic Party is replacing the candidate, but not the ideology. They are both extreme progressives, and part of the appeal that I think the Democrats were really excited and why they didn't want Plattner to drop out sooner, they felt, which I wholeheartedly disagree with, but they felt Plattner was charismatic. He had this like outsider perspective coming in. And as you mentioned, Jackson has been in office for 20 years. They run on this campaign of we need to break the system, we need something totally new, but somebody who's been in the system for 20 years is going to fix that. Yeah. It's really a shame. It's unfair to true blue Democrats, and they deserve to lose just off this alone. It's really a shame, and it's an embarrassment to democracy.
I will say the one thing I do like about this guy, though, is that he sounds exactly like Grady White, who's a former manager of the Boston Red Sox. So if you're from New England, you know that I love Grady White. So that's the one thing I do like about this guy. Sorry.
All right. Well, let's turn to another Senate race. This one was less expected. Darlene Graham, Lindsey Graham's sister, who stepped in to fill his Senate seat, said she is joining the race to run for his seat in November. Let's take a listen.
The president again saying, I hope Darlene does this. Meaning, I hope you will get, and here's the filing deadline for people that don't know, and these are just the laws of South Carolina. The filing begins tomorrow. I think you have a week.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And by that time, the funerals won't even have taken place.
I know.
And then the president's putting an ask on you, we'll put it that way. It's a lot of pressure.
It is a tremendous amount of pressure.
Tell me what's going through your head about it, and where do you stand now?
I'll continue to say I've been praying a lot, talking to my family, but with the love of my family, with the support of his staff. I know I'm a hard worker. I learned that from Lindsey. He cared about the people of this state. I've worked for almost 30 years for the people of this state.
I want to talk about that in a minute.
I feel like I can do it. I feel an inner peace about it. Will it be difficult? Yes, absolutely.
So you're inclined to get in, or have you even made a final decision?
I've made a decision.
You're in.
I'm in.
A few other Republicans have thrown their hat in the ring. Representatives Ralph Norman and Russell Fry and businessman Mark Lynch, who ran against Graham in the primary despite Darlene Graham having Trump's endorsement. Chris, let's start with you. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, you heard the compelling argument there, which is essentially an argument via blood. And I think, you know, definitely emotions are high right now. You see Democrats coming across the aisle to talk about the good that Lindsey Graham did. And they're working on that bipartisan sanctions bill for Russia, which President Trump wants to include Iran in, which might be a little bit, you know, harder because of Democratic frustrations with the Iran war. But you know, I think that the being of Lindsey Graham will influence it in the same way that I think the other candidates in the race here are at a disadvantage, like Ralph Norman, because, you know, everyone is so focused on all the good aspects of Lindsey Graham, then you get the natural successor in his sister. So,
Denny?
Look, I think she is very non-controversial. She's a true public servant, someone who's fought for disability rights, especially for blind people, for decades. I think she's a great candidate. I think her stepping in this role just genuinely, and obviously she gets a leg up because of the association and relation with her brother. But at the same time, I mean, I think she'll be good. I think she's going to serve the state well. So I have no problem with that.
I absolutely agree with Denny, and I think that that's what we want more of in politics. People have really made a difference and really impacted their communities before getting into public office and being civil servant for 20, 30, 40 years. So I think this would be great, and anytime you're running with the same name as an incumbent or Kennedy or any kind of thing, it's going to help you out. But bless her heart for being about just a week and a day now since Lindsey Graham has passed away, to be so poised and so put together and eloquent. She seems like a fabulous representative, and I hope she truly does get elected.
I should say Leader Thune, no endorsement. Very interesting. So we're going to see how if Ralph Norman or Congressman Fry, okay, but I don't think he's going to weigh in, are going to poll because they're already elected officials. But everyone has their own faction there in South Carolina.
Lot to watch. Let's get past the midterms and go to 2028 because Bill Maher said in an interview Sunday that he's likely to vote for J.D. Vance in 2028. Let's take a listen.
You told J.D. Vance you're open, your vote is up for grabs.
Yes, my vote is in play because it can't be Trump running. So I'm not living in communist America. I mean, I know the talking point is that, well, it's not communism, it's socialism. Okay, I've read the quotes from the DSA platform, from their own mouths. Don't tell me I'm not seeing what I am seeing. And DSA, again, they say things like, takeover of key industries, government. That's communism.
All right, Denny, let's start with you. Does it shock you that Bill Maher is ready to abandon the Democrats?
No, I think he is expressing the sense of frustration that a lot of actual real Democrats have right now. Is that right now the loudest voices in the room have hijacked the party. So, and they don't represent America. You see the places that they're winning. Yes, they're winning in places like New York City. They're winning in certain actual pockets of the area, like urban areas, like Diana DeGette's race where she lost, right? So there's really specific areas, but yet because they're the loudest people in the room, because they're hijacking incumbents and they're winning these races, that they're kind of setting the agenda right now, or kind of the picture of what the Democratic Party is, and it's not. And it's frustrating people like Bill Maher, it's frustrating people like me, it's frustrating tons of Democrats where we're like, this is not who we are. So it kind of stinks right now. I think there's going to be a lot of Democrats like myself that will seek alternative depending on who is the actual nominee for president in 2028. That could happen, but we'll see yet. It's too early to tell.
We'll have to see who is running, to your point. Deborah, your thoughts?
Yeah, we spoke about this last week on the show, that I'll say it again, that a bad Democratic Party or a failing Democratic Party is bad for America. And Bill Maher is not alone. Not just Democrats are scared. I'm scared because there's a 50-50 chance that this Democrat, a radical socialist, can get elected as president. If somebody like AOC or Gavin Newsom, they're an inch away from being just as radical as Mamdani and these other individuals that have really risen to fame over the last year and a half. And it's important with the Plattner election, like we were just speaking about. Plattner won over 72% of the Democratic vote. And so the Democratic Party, I think they're really struggling between trying to deny that this has become the mainstream. It's no longer the fringe, it's the mainstream, and now the smaller group is the people that are actually normal. So I'm really not the most hopeful about the solution and the path out of this, but hopefully we have more people like Denny leading us in good directions and can reclaim or create some sort of new party where if one person wins or one person loses, it won't be the end of the United States of America as we know it.
All right, Chris?
Here's the issue. It's Bill Maher. Bill Maher, historically, you've been watching him for the last few years, he's been moving further to the right, you could say, or you could say the Democratic Party has been moving further and further to the left. But either way, he's been outside of the movement for quite a while. So I don't think him coming out and saying anything is of particular note, because he's said similar things in the past. I mean, he's met with President Trump, he's done other things. I think that, he's kind of not my litmus test. If Joy Behar, or if Rosie O'Donnell, or if Joy Reid, or any of these people got out, Wolf Blitzer maybe, I don't know, just throwing names, and started to campaign for J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio, then I would say something is happening here. But I will say that today Van Jones made a very viral post where he talked about the Democratic Party having changed, and specifically the DSA, just like we heard from Bill Maher. But he says, he makes a very good argument, which is, what does universal health care have to do with Hamas, with abolishing all law enforcement, with erasing all borders, with treating every wealthy person as a villain? Ideas matter. These are terrible ideas. Right now, extremists are trying to sneak backwards proposals into our party. So, I mean, that's really what's going on. I heard somebody come up with Maher Mamdani just a week ago or so and talk about the violence of eviction. The violence of eviction, as if a landlord is some sort of an aggressor. This is radical stuff, and certain people, I think Van Jones is worth more in calling it out. That's what I'll say.
I would say Bill Maher, don't forget, he contributed $1 million to President Obama's super PAC when he was running for 2012.
Yeah.
Remember, it also came along with the promise that President Obama would do an interview on his show, which he subsequently did. But I was saying, just remember that was part of it too. So.
All right, well, we will be back with some hopefully lighter topics. Coming up, though, today marks 27 years since the Chinese Communist Party began its persecution against practitioners of Falun Gong, next turning that pain into a public act of resilience in the streets of New York City. That's next. Welcome back. Today marks 27 years since the Chinese Communist Party launching its persecution campaign against the spiritual practice Falun Gong. Every year, practitioners honoring the peaceful meditation system and commemorating the lives lost in the decades-long persecution. NTD's Nico Bani has the story from New York City's Chinatown in Lower Manhattan.
Right here, you can see practitioners marching through the streets of New York City's Chinatown, displaying banners saying truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, marking 27 years since the Chinese Communist Party started its persecution of the practice. Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a Chinese spiritual practice that combines 5 gentle exercises with teachings centered on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. On July 20th, 1999, after its popularity skyrocketed in China, the Chinese Communist Party launched a brutal persecution with the goal of eradicating the practice. The persecution continues to this day. Now, practitioners outside of China commemorate this anniversary, hoping their message in the free world can raise awareness of the atrocities happening in China.
The principles of the practice, truth, compassion, tolerance, it matters to everyone in the whole world. So the fact that that's being persecuted really affects the whole world.
In China, something like persecution happened there. They don't know that. We want to let them know.
Telling people what's happening, and especially from the Chinatown, it helps them to spread words back into China without having a censorship going on. Word of mouth is the most powerful way to spread what's happening.
Spectators stopped to watch the parade, with many expressing support for the group's message.
I think it's really hurtful to humanity and Chinese culture to suppress all of these different groups, and I think it's really important to have events like this to keep the culture alive and spread awareness.
And I love that this is happening and people are standing up for what they believe. The commemoration will conclude with a march and rally through the nation's capital this Thursday. Nico Bani, NTD News, New York.
And NTD will present a special coverage of the commemoration events in Washington, D.C. Tune in on Thursday, July 23rd at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. NTD's Carrie Dunstan, Stephania Cox will take you to the historic Lincoln Memorial for the rally, give you an excellent view of the march, and bring in guests to unpack the Chinese regime's persecution campaign in China and around the world. The commemoration events come at a time when more and more evidence of the Chinese Communist Party's transnational repression of the faith are coming to light. In the United States, the performing arts group Shenyun, founded by Falun Gong practitioners, has been experiencing escalating threats and acts of sabotage linked to the communist regime. And joining us with more on this subject, Steve Lance, host of NTD's Capitol Report and executive producer of the award-winning documentary Unbroken, the Untold Story of Shenyun. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to have you. I want to discuss the film with you in just a moment, but first, for viewers who may not know what happened 27 years ago today, why is this day commemorated by millions of people around the world?
Hey, Tiffany, it's great to be on the program. So yeah, today is a very significant day in the Falun Gong community, a very sad day, actually. July 20, 1999, 27 years ago today, we really saw an unprecedented persecution campaign launched that became the largest centralized persecution on the planet. There were 100 million people practicing Falun Gong inside of China at that time, according to the CCP's own internal estimates. And it was because of that number, it outnumbered Communist Party members. At that time, there were only 60 million in the Communist Party. And so although they supported it, they actually embraced it, they sponsored Falun Gong, the spiritual practice, as sort of a cultural phenomenon. People were having improvement in their mind, body, and spirit. Many senior officials inside of the government were all practicing this, but there was that one dictator, and that sort of alludes to the perils of communism. That's all it took. The top person, he saw it as a threat, was extremely jealous, and then condemned it, began to round up practitioners, putting them in forced labor camps, subjecting them to torture, eventually murder. And it really escalated into one of the most egregious crimes against humanity that we've ever seen on this planet in about 2006, which was the uncovering that it was taking place in China, the practice of forced live organ harvesting. They were taking Falun Gong practitioners at scale throughout China, rounding them up, matching their blood, and taking their organs, and then killing them and disposing of the bodies. I know it sounds like a sci-fi film, a horror film. It really is, but it's real life. And it was taking place in China and continues 27 years and counting, happening right now.
And given what you just laid out there, Steve, the House has already passed the Falun Gong Protection Act, and it's now awaiting a vote in the Senate. If it becomes law, what would it do and what significance would it have?
It's actually a very significant piece of legislation, which is gaining a lot of bipartisan traction. This persecution is a very nonpartisan or bipartisan issue in the United States. You have Senator Cruz, who introduced it on the Senate side. Previously, Senator Rubio did before he left to become the Secretary of State. You have Democratic Senator Merkley of Oregon, who is also co-sponsored. There's a few other Democrats that have just come on, many other Republicans, Senator Ron Johnson, another one. And why this piece of legislation is so significant, because it actually addresses the issue of forced organ harvesting. It requires an annual report on some of these crimes against humanity through the State Department, which would elevate this to the level of the executive branch, and it becomes thrust into the domestic policy. It's not just something foreign. It's something that would have to be recognized, talked about, examined, and there are real consequences too if this bill were to pass for those participants inside of China who are participating in this persecution if they were to ever come to the United States.
And Steve, let's turn to the documentary now, Unbroken, the untold story of Shen. You are the executive producer. Tell us about the film and the performing arts company Shen Yun that's featured in it. What inspired you to tell this story?
Yeah, you know, Tiffany, so I have been with NTD through different periods of my career for nearly 2 decades. I'm dating myself now, but when I first came to NTD in the early 2000s, I was focusing on the Chinese Student and Scholar Associations, otherwise known as CSSAs, which are essentially instruments of the Chinese government that are directly connected to the various Chinese embassies and consulates. So I've always had sort of an eye on the CCP's infiltration and influence inside of the United States. Shen Yun, as the viewers might know, is a classical Chinese dance company based in New York with a tagline, China before communism. So naturally, with that type of a tagline, you're going to draw the attention and ire of the CCP. And Shen Yun was established by Chinese-American Falun Gong practitioners. And their mission was to raise awareness about all the things that we just laid out, the persecution. One thing we didn't mention, on top of the actual persecution, the physical things that came along with it, the torture, the forced labor, the organ harvesting, there was a propaganda campaign that was tremendous, that really tried to demonize Falun Gong and prevent the world's people, the world's media, Western media from reporting on it appropriately. And so Falun Gong practitioners inside of the United States, they set up various organizations and entities with the sheer mission to just really get the word out. And Shen Yun, part of their mission is to talk about it. It's also to establish and reintroduce traditional Chinese culture and traditional culture. And so to answer you, this is a long way of answering your question, I know. The reason why we did this is we started to see the New York Times take an unusual interest in this group. They started to write a variety of hit pieces. It was 1 negative article, 2, then 3, then 4. And that really started to catch our attention. I have watched the Shen Yun show. I have seen the reaction of audiences after they came out, and people love it. And so to all of a sudden see these pieces targeting Shen Yun, it really, caught our attention, and we decided to look into it. And there's an investigative track. There's a human interest track where we track the dancers and follow them and really try to understand their process. But there's an investigative track as well that shows a lot of interesting parallels to the CCP's propaganda efforts against Falun Gong in the New York Times reporting.
And Steve, Congressman Marlin Stutzman is holding a policy panel this Wednesday on a transnational repression, and I understand that the film Unbroken will also be shown as part of a special presentation there. What do you hope policymakers take away from the film, and what would you like to see Congress do next?
It's a pretty big deal. As you know, CCP influence, I don't have to tell you, Tiffany, China in Focus, your other program, but their clause and your documentary, Hollywood Takeover, people should watch it if they haven't. The CCP is in every industry and every sector. They're in our media, they're in Hollywood, as we learned from your film. They're on Wall Street. They're also on Capitol Hill. So to have this screening on Capitol Hill to give staffers, to give members of Congress a really clean and fresh idea of what might be happening if they do get a visit from the Chinese embassy, and give them the actual truth. And it's not just the embassy that is spreading propaganda about this group. You have the New York Times. So it's going to be a great event. We're very excited. As you mentioned, members of Congress, a lot of policymakers, DC think tanks and folks here. It's going to be Wednesday at the Capitol Hill Visitor Center.
Well, Steve Lance, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more after this short break. All right, welcome back. Tonight, game time once again. You'd think after the World Cup we might be gamed out, but you would be incorrect. It's been a busy Monday, so we need this. I've decided to roll out a panel favorite, big deal or no big deal. I'll queue up some of the stories we've been talking about in the newsroom, and I'll put it to the panel. Is the story a big deal or not? So back with me, our most excellent panel, Deborah Leah, political commentator, Denny Salas, Democratic strategist, and Chris Bob, NTD's political correspondent. So first off, New York Democratic Congresswoman AOC is not ruling out a presidential run in 2028. She was in Grand Rapids, Michigan this weekend campaigning for Democratic Senate candidate Abdul Al-Sayed. Now, when asked by Politico whether she has ambitions to run for president, she responded, quote, "I can't say that I've ruled it out." Now, as the Democratic Party's left wing continues to gain influence, AOC, once seen as a leading progressive voice, is now increasingly viewed as closer to the political center. So AOC not ruling out a 2028 run. Chris, let's start with you. Big deal, no big deal?
Big deal, because we finally have somebody who represents the forgotten class in this country. Former bartenders with 10 million Instagram followers. This is a demographic that is underserved in this country. No, I mean, AOC of course she's going to run. I've thought she's going to run for a long time. One interesting quote that she gives the Politico article is that she's working class and not a militant leftist. Convincing. Everyone's talking about AOC's move to the center. Are you convinced? No. Okay, so there you have it. This is the most center person I know. So I really think, she's trying to appeal to a broader audience of people, people who didn't attend liberal arts schools like myself, and good luck to her. I think it's going to be a very interesting road to travel. She's going to go up against Gavin Newsom and some other people who are probably going to be eliminated. But I think she has a chance, because there was like this Bernie socialist energy in like 2015, 2016, around the time of Trump. And now we have like the whole Trump succession battle, and we're already seeing the flames of socialism coming up once more. And I think this is just like cosmic timing for someone like this to emerge. Now, we saw what happened to Bernie last time, and I assume probably the same will happen this time, but this is probably what's going to happen. You're going to see her name, at least in the primary.
Really, what happened to your love for Hunter Biden? Anyway, that's another time. Deborah?
I don't think it's a big deal. We've all seen this coming for many, many years. And I also have to point out, nothing like an American candidate, Abdul El Sayed. That really sounds like representing American. And I have to point it out because you said, or she said, that the center, she's not this radical leftist. And I truly do believe that she was the extreme 5-6 years ago now, and the center has moved towards her more. It's not she got closer to the center of the Democratic Party, or at least their new center, has moved more in her direction, where ideas like socialism, tax, hating all rich people, honestly, nobody ever working, you're just getting free money and free donuts all day long, that's become more widely accepted by mainstream Democrats. So I don't think it's a big deal, and I really hope she doesn't win.
All right, Denny?
No big deal. And look, when you say that, don't forget when she wore that tax the rich dress at the Met Gala,
$7,000 gown.
And didn't pay for it, right?
Yes.
But look, I don't think it's a big deal. I also don't see a pathway for her to win. I think she's going to be competing heavily for the same amount of voters for like Gavin Newsom, but also Kamala Harris. So you're going to see folks that are going to cannibalize each other. I don't think she's going to be the candidate that comes out on top. Moreover, if I'm going to be strategically like advising AOC, I would state to her, hey, your pathway is really the United States Senate by going after Schumer's seat when he's up for re-election. Like, it's not this right here.
Mm-hmm.
Over that, you can have the same amount of influence as you can and play as a queen maker.
Don't give her ideas,
I'm just
Debbie.
saying.
What are you doing? What are you? Keep it to yourself.
She can play
Keep
queen
it to
maker.
yourself. She's not your client. Don't give her any ideas. Tell her, yes, this is the best way, AOC. Run for president. Quit all your jobs. Let's have a special election in your district where you faked being from the Bronx, where you never actually lived. Let's do it.
Yorktown.
Our
That's where she actually grew up. Yorktown, New York. No, but yes, I mean, look, it's not a big deal. I just don't think this is a pathway for her anyways. But yeah.
All right, in terms of who's currently in office, the White House today saying President Trump will stop flying on the new Air Force One, which was gifted by Qatar while it undergoes upgrades in the coming months. Here's what he said about the aircraft yesterday, so let's take a listen.
And, it has a lot of capability, but as I understand it, in about a month or so, they're going to send it to have it be maxed out.
All right, so the Qatar gifted Air Force One out of service as it gets maxed out. Big deal, no big deal, Deborah?
I think this is a huge deal, actually, and I have said it for years, long before October 7th. Qatar is not a friend to the United States. It is not a friend to Western civilization. Qatar actually does everything that Israel and Jews get accused of. They spend billions of dollars to influence our universities and our youth. They spend lots of money in our elections. They've moved into D.C. to try and have their influence over this administration, and we should not make any deals with them. There's nothing we need from Qatar. They fund terrorism around the world. They hide terrorists like those responsible for October 7th in their country. We need nothing from them. They should not be anywhere near the president. President Trump does like shiny, nice things, so I can't blame him for acting how he's always acted. He likes beautiful things. He loves gifts, but Qatar is not a friend to us, and we should not let them be anywhere near our government. This is all for influence and power over our country, which they should have none of. They're a terrorist-controlling state that hides terrorists in their country. Nothing to do with America. We should have no relationship.
And Chris, I know you're a big fan of the maxing movement. So
Trump
the White
maxing.
House put out a post today about this, calling it plain maxing. We have that somewhere. But Chris, big deal, no big deal?
No big deal. No big deal. Because, if anyone gives you a gift, we're talking about, the #1 movie that's coming out. It came out already, The Odyssey. And, other notable ones are, Troy. I think of the Trojan horse. A beautiful gift that has some issues that need to be corrected. So it needs to be equipped with the Survivor RAND package, which should take some time. But ultimately, we got a gift here. Deborah doesn't like the gift. Mm-hmm. It is a gift nonetheless, and you know that Trump likes gifts. The one crazy quote. So in the article about the safety features of the jet, which prompted some sort of investigation, there were reporters who said that they had to pull down their blinds, and then it was alleged by either President Trump or some of the people there that it was something to do with an Iran attack or something along those lines. But I just want to make this point. If anyone tells you to lower the blinds of an aircraft to prevent against an attack, it's like pulling the covers over you to hide from the monsters under your bed. Has no effect whatsoever. So I thought it's a fun story. I'm sure the CIA is going to scrub it for everything they got in there. And maybe they'll find something, and that'll be in the next news.
All right, Danny?
Look, it's a huge deal, but it's because how did our security apparatus allow the President of the United States to fly on something that was not fully equipped with all the defensive mechanisms that were supposed to be in place? That to me is the actual failure of this whole thing. He got the gift. Yes, I get exactly what you're trying to say, and I just don't understand how we allowed the President of the United States to actually fly on this thing. So yeah.
All right, well, big news over the weekend, the World Cup. So let's talk about the World Cup. Spain defeated Argentina 1-0 yesterday. So the winning squad has returned home. Early today, they were welcomed by Spain's royal family with the World Cup trophy. Now, Argentina star player Lionel Messi was seen in tears after the match. He later posted on Instagram saying, translated from Spanish, of course, "The pain is immense and it's going to take time for this wound to heal, but I'll also hold on to all the good memories." He went on to thank supporters in their heartfelt messages, adding, "Once again, we managed to come together as a country and stand united, sharing the immense pride of being Argentine." Now, he also congratulated Spain on winning the championship. Danny, I know you're a huge soccer fan, so Spain winning the championship, big deal.
That was a big deal, huge deal. It was such an incredible World Cup. I already miss it. I'm so sad and depressed I don't get to go home and just watch more games. I mean, it was such an awesome spectacle and show off for all of North America that was actually involved in this whole thing. And, the game itself, it was beautiful. It was a 1-0 game, and if you don't like soccer and sports that much and you think of 1-0 not being thrilling, it was thrilling. The game was incredible. You watched the top two teams in the world face each other, and yes, Spain dominated, but then you got to see some of the brilliance of Argentina towards the end of the game. But, the big winner of this whole thing, by the way, is FIFA and Fox, and I'll tell you why. The original projections for the World Cup was around $8 billion. That's how much they're going to net in revenue. They're now expected to have $15 billion, FIFA itself, throughout this. But also Fox, they bought the broadcast rights for FIFA for about $485 million 3 years ago, right? Those hydration breaks that we all watch for all those games, on those alone, Fox made $300 million. So they know they got a deal on this one, but also viewership numbers so everyone can understand the comparison on this one. When you watch the Super Bowl, this year's Super Bowl, there was 126 million viewers watching the Super Bowl, right? This year, 2026. The FIFA World Cup final, 1.5 billion viewers. It was a huge success for everyone involved. So congratulations, Spain. Congratulations, FIFA. Well done. Congratulations, America, Canada, Mexico, for putting on an incredible venue and World Cup.
Chris?
One thing you left out, beer sales went up 14% in host cities, which is good. And also, I think Kalshi gained 3 million new users. So we're promoting the right things. That's all I'll say. We're having fun.
All right, Deborah.
Well, because you guys know I'm the least interested in the World Cup out of every single person here, retweet on everything that you said. But I will say that the big deal here was true kudos to our Secret Service for not a single security event or mishap happening at this event. I believe the numbers from Kash Patel were about 5.5 to 6 million people who came to watch the games in MetLife. So that's miraculous that they were able to have many tourists. So shout out to America on being able to have the largest sporting event I think we've ever hosted in the United States of America. So it's very exciting for America. I don't care so much about Spain. I'm an American.
All right, well, very quickly, speaking of something that does bring people together, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. The film has set a new record for Nolan, earning the biggest opening weekend of his career. That's according to Rantrack, taking in $124.5 million on the North American box office. It is the first feature film shot entirely with IMAX cameras. So Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey sets a record-breaking opening weekend. Deborah, quick thoughts.
I don't think it's a huge deal. I think Christopher Nolan's extremely talented. I expected everything that he touches to just do amazing. I'm excited to see it. I've only heard great things, so we'll have to discuss next week once I watch it and can give my feedback.
Danny?
I mean, agree. No big deal. Christopher Nolan is clearly the most talented director in the game right now, so I'm not surprised that it was going to be a great movie. I haven't watched it yet. I am looking forward to seeing it.
All right, Chris?
Christopher Nolan gave us 3 hours of a movie about a man taking a 10-hour journey just to get home, and Amtrak should call it aspirational.
20 years, but okay. 10 hour.
10 year. 10 years to get home.
All right.
Did it not take Odysseus 10 years to get home?
Took him a long time. Anyways, on that note, Chris, Denny, Deborah, thanks for joining us. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Tiffany Meier Tonight. I'm Tiffany Meier. We'll see you tomorrow.